Hello, and welcome to what is now becoming a bit of an annual kind of recap of the year gone by, and also is part of my run into Christmas officially now. Welcome to our State of the Industry kind of review of 2024. And as usual, we have asked for the perspective of people that have been watching our industry, the highs, the lows, the ups and the downs, and the all arounds by going to our editors. So first of all, we have got Adam Parry from Event and Industry News, Caroline Clift from Stand Out, and Paul from M&IT. Thank you for joining us. The reason why we've come to you is you come at things from three different parts of our industry. So we're looking forward to getting your your insight and understanding of what might be coming ahead as well. A few quick thank yous before I start. So we have got Catherine and Mike from Sorensen here doing our interpretation today. We're an open session to the industry. So for that reason, we have interpretation on this session. Also, a massive thank you to Unity, who are our technical kind of production providers on this session. Final bit of admin, if you've got any chat or Q&A, add into the then go into that session and that part of the site, and I'll bring questions in as we go. So are we all ready? Fabulous. Excellent. Right, let's kick off with the highs. We don't want to go too low too quick. From your various different perspectives, give us a bit of a rundown on what you think the highs of 2024 have been. Adam, I'm coming to you first.
Well, one of the highs that I've seen, we've just delivered 2 events, and we obviously ask people how many events they're producing. And we've seen about a 20% uptick in the number of events being produced across physical, virtual, hybrid events from the same time last year. So I think that's a real positive indicator of the industry. But really for me, the highs are, which are connected to my lows, which I'll come on to later, is really still a move to sustainability, learning from each other, trying to find out ways that individuals and individual companies or the industry can make that small impact to make a greater, larger impact. We're seeing that with news and content and things being produced for us and sent in to us. I think, I'm sure it's the same for Caroline and Paul, we probably have multiple, if not dozens of pieces of content submitted around sustainability, whether that's a supplier, an organizer, a venue and such. So that's a real positive indication of the industry trying its best on the whole to move to a more sustainable events future.
So I agree. I see in the Ops Nest a lot of changes that members are starting to make, and it's starting to become more kind of grassroots, real kind of show floor changes. But then I also see in articles in the press in our industry that we're still not getting there quick enough. So on our kind of scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being, yes, we're nailing sustainability, like where do you reckon we are in 2024? And I'm going to write it down so we figure out the same question in 2025.
Is this a question for me, or is it an open forum question?
Well, we'll start with you, and then I might go to
well, first of all, I think we're in danger of wanting to rush to the finish line, first and foremost. And I think that's often where smaller organizations, individuals feel under pressure, or like they're not doing anything when it comes to sustainability, and fear criticism for not moving quick enough. You know, arguably the larger the organization, the more people, the more revenue and money you have to throw at something, the more you can do. But that's not the barometer or the benchmark that I think the industry as a whole should be set by. And I think, is it the saying, comparison is a thief of joy? And I think it's very true when it comes to sustainability. You know, some people can't make big ecological impacts, but they can make big social impacts with local community or schools or other initiatives and things like that. So I think we're a damn sight further forward than we are pre-pandemic. I know we're still saying that time frame, but and there is still a long way to go. But I think the biggest win for us all is just back to our audiences and our attendees and things that we can have. If we can impart 1% change in the way that they approach our event, whether that's from travel, accommodation, on site, getting them encouraging into recycling, doing the right thing with lanyards and stuff like that, not taking them outside the venue and bidding them off site so we can't recycle the things, then those are the big wins, or the immediate wins that I see. But yeah, we've still got a long way to go till I think we can say we are a sustainable industry, but we're certainly heading in the right direction on the whole, I think.
Yeah. Paul, have you got input onto that?
Yeah, no, I think I agree. I think it's easy to beat ourselves up about how much we do or don't do on sustainability. And I agree completely with Adam. We're going in the right direction. I would say that like a couple of years ago, sustainability was the number one topic that everyone was talking about in terms of the corporate world, meetings and events. But like and now that's being taken over by budgets. And obviously when you're talking about budgets, it's like, do we have the budgets to do sustainability? But I think where we are compared to where we were, and like certainly when I started in the industry 10 years ago, sustainability was, it was a nice to have, but like, and now it's definitely becoming a need to have.
Caroline, what do you think?
Well, I feel really old now after Paul saying he's been in the industry 10 years. I'm 20 next year. It's a bit crazy, really, because sustainability wasn't one of those things that we talked about 20 years ago. You were lucky if you were talking about waste management, really. To echo something that Adam said there, I think pre-COVID, we were on this amazing trajectory. And if it wasn't for COVID, I think we'd be in a hell of a different position compared to where we are now. That went out the window. We know why. It's certainly ramped up this year. I don't know how many invitations I got to go on site and look at a battery unit, a solar powered Jenny, a hydrogen unit. And in terms of outdoor events and live events, power was definitely a humongous focus, and I think that will continue, and there are a lot of products coming into the market that are helping people with that, so you can have solar powered production villages and things like that. You have big bands like Coldplay and Billie Eilish leading the way in terms of sustainability and touring, but when you're talking about an everyday festival for 10-20,000 people, there are certainly some organisers out there doing really amazing things. Yet at the same time, I was on site at a very, very large event this year, talking more than 100,000 attendees, and they've only just started measuring. So you've got polar opposites. But in terms of giving it a score, I'd maybe want to say a 6, because there's definitely more that can be done.
I think that resonates with the conversation we've been having in the nest recently, which is around the fact that, okay, 0 to 6, a few people have kind of said around the 6 mark. 0 to 6, I think in the whole scheme of things, have been relatively easy. Make a couple of big changes, a bunch of small ones. It's kind of, your first stab at stuff. You can make some impact. 6 to 10, however, is all the stuff we've not wanted to do. And that's the stuff we're going to have to do. So I think, 6 to 10 is going to be harder than 0 to 6 by a long shot. That's kind of where we've been talking around. And I completely agree, Adam. It's that 1%. It's one change, and committing to making one change a month, or one change a show, or one change at anything, but one change and keep going. Right, so that's one of the highs of 2024. Adam, have you got any more to throw into the mix, or should we go to Paul?
The fact that we're all still here after 10, 15 and 20 years, I think, is a positive sign, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, Paul, how long are you in the game?
Sorry, how long have I been in the 11 years I've been in.
11 years. Okay. Adam, what about you?
15 for me.
Okay, now I feel really old. I'm like pushing into 28 or something like that.
But isn't that one of the best things about the industry? You know, yes, I not to about a negative at the moment, which I think is still we have a massive job to attract talent to the industry. But I think once you're in it, you tend to stick around, don't you? It seems that way. That's
true.
We do have some really nice little perks to our jobs, I must admit. We do get to see some amazing stuff. But don't get me wrong, most of my enjoyment comes from being in a high vis and steelies and clambering over a bit of scaffolding and looking at a structure, telling you who did it just by looking at the roof, because that's how geeky I've become. But you make some amazing friends, and I do you know what, I'm still learning stuff. I've had a crash course in event control this week, and next year I'm going to be a logger on site randomly. So there's still stuff, even after 20 years, that I still don't know. I'm still willing to learn. There's new events happening all the time. There's sites that we've not been on, so it's just the most amazing industry, and we wouldn't still do it if we didn't love it.
No.
Actually, I'm going to echo that, because last week I went on Ops on Tour to PSP, and I learnt yet more about rigging and yet more about virtual and what cables, and you can always learn more. I'm going to put that as an across the board high, not of 2024, but of the whole shebang. Paul, right, give us some of your highs of 2024.
Highs of 2024. Well, I kind of wanted to just kind of like, if you zoom out a bit and then look back to like 2022, 2023, there was like, certainly on the corporate like meetings and event side of things, there was like a surge of kind of massive out of the blocks kind of post-COVID kind of like surge of energy, and people could finally like, you know, meet up with each other and do less via a screen. And so the challenge for the event agencies was actually kind of getting talent back into the industry to serve all these like events that they were doing. And the hospitality industry, obviously, which is closely linked, is facing the same challenges as well. And so a couple of years ago, you know, like while business was good and people were meeting again, agencies were actually really struggling, because especially after Brexit, to bring talent into the UK and get people to feel excited about the industry again. And there were so many people that obviously kind of decided on a like change of career. You know, they went to work for like the NHS or the Amazon for Amazon, you know, kind of pandemic proof jobs basically. But an agency sort of had all this demand coming through, but we're struggling to meet that from like a staff shortage and personnel point of view. And it wasn't just the agency world either. You get, like I mentioned, hospitality, you got to hotels and restaurants, and you know, the service levels just weren't really there. And it might have felt good, but it was really hard work. But like, so that's where we were like kind of like the last couple of years. But I feel like now, like 2024, I feel like we have turned a corner. And we're back in a place again where people are kind of, you know, we're recognizing and kind of supporting each other. And, you know, event agencies are meeting their customers every single day face to face, and they're hosting them at dinners, and there's new openings. And I get so many kind of invitations to events, receptions, you know, kind of, there's so many new openings in London as well, and which is fantastic to see. And fam trips are back on again, and I get so many invitations to those as well that I have to turn down, which always saddens me. But people are traveling again, and people are seeing the industry as an exciting place again. And I think that is my main positive from 2024.
I'm loving that. I'll take that. That's it. There's good vibes out there. I'm going to throw in a couple from kind of that exhibition. Some of them from the supply chain side. September was nuts. They had a bumper September, and there wasn't some of the big biannuals in the calendar on the even year either, and it was still bumper. So I think that's really positive. Well, I'll go into what some of the lows are, I mean, lead times and stuff in a minute. But the other one that came out of our research, we do a kind of state of ops research every year. This year, we asked people what changes they'd made across accessibility, diversity, and sustainability within their either shows or their businesses. And this year, the accessibility stats shot right up. People are making changes in how to welcome more people into more events, which I think is a definite high for me. Right. Caroline, you asked us to come to you last on the highs of 2024 because you want to take us on a little roller coaster, the highs and then straight into the lows. It's a good segue. So looking forward to this one.
Is for me, one of my highs came very early in the season, like back in June. I know I've already said I spend a lot of my time in Steelies and a high vis and a hard hat. Looking at the build, because I think some of the really cool stuff happens on the build, sometimes more than the event itself. And you get to bump into loads of people, suppliers, organisers, promoters, the lot. And I went to Goodwood Festival of Speed. And even if you're not into cars, it's just an amazing day out. And I love it. I'm a bit of a petrol head, but I love it anyway. And that grid that they have at Goodwood, I've been going to it for years, and during COVID, a word we don't want to use, but hey, it's still there. You could tell that the brands weren't spending money, but this year, crikey, it was evident that brands are spending again. Now I know that's only one sector, one industry with automotive, but looking at the size of the stands that were there, looking at the amount of space that they were taking, looking at the sheer number of brands that were there, it was like pre-COVID times. And that's a really good sign, I think. So that for me, humongous high. We've also got quite a few festivals launching and people sort of willing to take a bit of a risk, because if you're going to launch a festival in this day and age, then you've got to be comfortable with taking risk. And so you've got like there's several. You've got the big ones from the likes of AEG, where you've got Lido and Forever Now, and TEG Europe doing Come Together up north. But then you've got some smaller ones like Tunes in the Bay and Monmouth Rising, which is a new one. Good Life, things like that. But you have to set that against the backdrop of the festivals that are cancelling and postponing. So that's a massive blow. They're poles apart. So we're into like more than 70 now. Sundown Festival and Cambridge Club have announced in the last week that they are not going ahead. So yeah, that's really, really. What's that?
So is it that the launches just aren't yet aware of the reason why all the other ones are cancelling? What's the success rate of the launches?
Those that are launching, some of the people that are launching them, they are established organisations. They know exactly what they're getting themselves into. And the other people, they think it can work. And good on them for having a go.
Yeah. So is it that society's changed, people have changed a lot over the last 5 years? Is it that you're starting to see a bit of a reset in what people want? The more established older versions, are they wanting a refresh? Are they wanting something new, do you think?
It's an interesting one. What we've had, and it's something that I've seen, and I was just talking about this on Monday actually with Kendall Calling, which is from the guys from the Fields. They are 20 next year, same as Stand Out magazine. So they started 20 years ago in 2025. So we were talking about how come they are selling out. And I think there was this previous thought that the festivals that are selling out, which are your Bloodstocks and your Shambalas and things like that, I think people assume they were in this quite niche market. But when you look at Kendall Calling, very family friendly, quite northern audience, a mix of music, appeals to everybody, sold out 3 weeks or so after going on sale, and they've absolutely been blown away by it.
Right.
So you kind of think, well, you're not exactly a niche, you're not exactly there for a niche audience. So what is it? And I think a lot of it comes down to the consumer trusting the promoter and trusting the organizer that they're going to deliver, and they've put a lot of trust in them because they're buying tickets even before they've announced a lineup.
Right.
So they're trusting the process. And those organisers are being very transparent with their customers and their ticket buyers.
I think if I was to add a thought on this, and I've got no evidence of this, this is just my personal opinion. I think grassroots festivals, or those that would organise, think, yeah, let's get a bunch of people together in a field, are kind of the same people that are being squeezed out of towns and cities promoting events and doing nights and things, and venues are being shut down left, right and centre, being squeezed out by local authorities or by developers that want the land or the property because it's more commercially viable as retail units or flats and things like that, which to me is crazy, because you build a bunch of flats and what are those people going to do at the evening and weekends? Do you know what I mean? Where do they go? We can't all just... that a gig is not, don't get me wrong, there are some amazing gigs at big stadium. I went to Co-op Live the other week to see Kasabian, and it was a mega gig. It was fantastic. But they're established band. They're not a grassroots band that are just getting started like hundreds and hundreds of other bands. Where do they play? Where do they get their start? And where do the people that help pull them together in a small venue then put the festival on? And I think it's all connected. I think you need that feeder of that local gig economy and local event economy to build a following up and trust in a promoter to then go, yeah, we're going to bring 5,000 people together in a field in summer and bring all of these bands and acts and people together at the same time. But like I said, got no evidence of that. I could totally be wrong, but...
Well, Tabassy Festival, which was 60 years this year, they unfortunately had to announce their closure. But what has come from them, the same team, they've launched Found Festival. And so they're going from thousands and thousands. They're going to 3,000 people, and that's it. Their tagline is, it's about the head turners, not the headliners. So they specifically want to look for what will be the next big thing. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting tagline, to be fair. I think
one of the things that's come through from both of you talking is the word trust, and actually resonates with a message that I've just got about something slightly different, but it's the same. I think it's the same. There's something in there, which is you get something through on your phone, and do you trust it or do you not? There's so much out there, and we will come on to kind of what maybe some of the trends for 2025, but the ability to trust the source of information, the time that you are going to spend with someone, or under somebody's kind of jurisdiction, or, you know, that trust is becoming, I think, one of the biggest things we're going to need to work at as an event organizer. And I've seen people like Tamar from Gleaning. She's mentioned it a lot recently in terms of how we market to people. You know, if you cannot get your message across in a really succinct way and in a really personalized way and get that trust, you don't get someone coming to your event. I wonder if that's kind of going to start playing more of a part. We're going into trends there, though. Right. Any more highs before we move on to the lows? Okay. All right. Okay, Caroline, the lows.
I've sort of already touched on mine. Festival world is really took a battering. It really has. And it goes on to one of those points that Paul mentioned. Sorry, my Labrador is pestering me for some attention down here. If anybody see my arm going, it's because Bruno needs his belly rubbing. Yeah. God, let's try now. So yes, it's they've really took an absolute hammering, and your heart can only go out to people. I did see a couple of things at the beginning of the year. I think people announced that it was going to be their last year, hoping that people were then going to go, oh shit, got to buy a ticket, thinking that they might sell out based on their announcement. And I don't think it quite worked out that way for everybody. Right. But yeah, that festival world has took an absolute battering. And it's really, really sad. But I have to give it. Sorry.
What does that mean for the people working in your part of our industry?
Well, it kind of takes us onto a trend, really, especially where you've got production companies that would, and when I say production companies, I'm not talking like Sound AV, I'm talking about anybody that might do site management, anybody that might do ops, where they have maybe focused on going after those festival clients. They are thinking we can't have all our eggs in one basket, and they are looking to diversify, and they are going after local authority tenders. They're going after mass participation, the sporting world, and I think that's only going to happen more and more. They're clearly a bit nervous. Some of their contracts for the year, some of them have lost a third, so it's like they're going, shit, we need to look for work elsewhere. What are we going to do? It's a transferable skill. Which areas of the market are growing, and they're having to move over.
Right. Okay. On that note, just in case I forget, well, I will forget by the end. Anybody that's within, like, between roles, like if you are facing hardship, we've got a scholarship program in the Ops Nest, and so just give me a shout. We'll get you into the Nest for a month or two, and you can learn kind of business event operations through our courses and bits and pieces, just as a kind of stay in the industry. Don't leave events. We'll have you. We've got plenty of work in across the board. So yeah, whatever happens, don't leave the industry. Stay in the industry, and we'll do what we can to support you. That's heartbreaking, especially after COVID. I know that we're going to, at the end of this, talk about the C word, but it's still coming up a lot. It's heartbreaking after the 2 years or so of having our jobs, thoroughly under risk or at risk, for a portion of our industry to now be facing it for a very different reason. That's a really heartbreaking. Right, Anita, I know we've still got lots of lows to talk about as well. Adam.
Well, I'll touch on mine briefly, and listen, it is connected to my high. It's still around the theme of and the topic of sustainability, and what the low for me are when you have offline conversations, let's call them. They're not things that I'm reporting on. They're not things that we're writing about and things like that. These are just Chatham House style conversations of where people are really finding challenges and pain points and things like that. And it's around sustainability, but being dealt with in an unfair or a disparative way. Certain industries, certain verticals, certain things are legislated. So it is a thing that they legally have to do and achieve. Whereas the events industry very much isn't a part of that at the moment. So the choice to invest or do things from a sustainability perspective is very much, often from what I can see, left to the bottom of the list. It in some ways, I think on the whole, it still is felt like, well, it's nice if we can do it, and if not, no big deal. We just won't report on it, or we won't do it. And that's really struggle. That's a real struggle for people who are sustainability leads, because they feel like they're not getting the support and to make the impacts that they're there to do. And in some ways, often felt unfairly treated to their counterparts in an organisation who have these legislative things to achieve and get all the support. And I think also the not criticism might be the wrong word, but the magnification of implementing something and it not necessarily working out first time, and that being the end of it. Well, that didn't work, so we're not going to try that again. We're not going to try and improve things. We're not trying to tweak things. We're just going to go back either to the way that we used to do something or totally scrap it altogether. And I think when it comes to sustainability, it's a little bit, it's closely aligned to like technology and innovation with me. In order to move things forward, you've got to make mistakes, and you've got to not everything's going to work. And I think it's coming back down to the lows for me are those individuals that are very passionate about sustainability, want to make a change, have taken the lead within an organization or within a company to do that, but then don't feel like they're getting the support that they need from the entire organization. That's not necessarily just the management, but it's from the rest of the people within the team and the company. being supportive of that's the way they're moving. So that's been my low, because that's been a conversation I've had more than once this year.
Yeah, you're so right. We've got to make mistakes. I'm coming up to 5 years of making one change a month in my life, and I'd say half of those have absolutely failed. and I've been all the better for it. I'm getting a better success rate the more I do it. So my last 12 months, they're more sustainable changes because of the 4 years of largely getting it wrong and understanding then why I got it wrong and what I could do differently.
I think the thing on that, Lou, is often as individuals and companies, because we feel time is on our side, we create very lofty goals, very advantageous things to achieve. And we're looking at things as years rather than months, weeks, or days. Like if I was to ask you what could you do today, would be totally different to the answer you would give me if you said what can you do in a year. And that's often where we go wrong. We're not breaking these achievements down into small bite-sized things that we can make those incremental compounding changes that make the big impact later.
Yeah, exactly. Right, so we've got large volume cancellations in the festival world. We've got stagnant change on sustainability in your world, Adam. Paul, coming to you. What have we got going
Finishes
on in your
off.
Yeah, we've got more misery, don't we?
I promise we're going to bring this up very soon.
No, but it kind of relates to what Adam was saying about people in sustainability roles at organisations not getting the support that they need. It's because that essentially a large part of that comes from budgets, doesn't it? And that has been the number one thing in the corporate world. Corporate events, budgets has been the number one kind of sticking point and kind of source of woe for everyone in the industry this year. It's going to be, like big clients, corporations are going to look to control costs even more going into 2025 as well. So I don't think it's going to go away anywhere. And some of it is down to obviously there's like political uncertainty. It's been a huge year of political change. I think like this year has been kind of more elections, more people voting than ever before. And obviously you had big changes. Obviously the US, Trump got back in and he's promising kind of tariffs and things like that. And we yet to see exactly what the effect will be in the global economy, but you'd imagine it would have an effect. Obviously, kind of there's all the kind of political like unrest in war kind of like in the Middle East, and obviously what's happening in Syria at the moment, that's going to have a bearing. I have no idea how that's going to play out. And we've got Russia as well, but I suppose in the UK, which is kind of M&IT audience, the UK, the big news is the new government in the UK, and we got. I think everyone knew that we were going to get a Labour government this year. It was just kind of like when it was going to happen. I think that was, but obviously it happened in July, and then we got their first budget in October. And the thing with an incoming government, they come in and they know they've got kind of like 4 or 5 years of being in charge, especially when you win a big kind of like landslide like Labour did in July. And anyone will tell you that any incoming government comes in and wants to get the most pain out of the way in the first budget, so that by the time the next election comes around, everyone's forgotten about kind of the pain of the first budget. They've sorted out the economy and they get re-elected. That's the playbook. But it does mean that we're in the difficult decisions bit of that scenario. It means so obviously Rachel Reeves delivered a budget, and I'd say the biggest fly in the ointment, and certainly one that has affected the event agency world that I live in. There's been the national insurance contributions, the increase of national insurance contributions by up to 15% for employers, which is pretty big. I mean, it caused a flurry of outrage when it was announced, and the longer that it goes on, the more agency heads I speak to who are raising concerns about the government laying the burden of fixing the economy on small and medium-sized businesses. And those tax rises need tight margins for event agencies. They're going to mean stunted wage growth for employees. So it's not just as well. It's not just national insurance. It ensures people are feeling the pinch. So, for example, I'll be quick here. But M&IT does the UK Convention Centre Price Survey every year. We go out to like 12, 15 of the biggest conference centres all over. I mean, you know them all. And this is the first year that every single participating conference centre has had price rises, and every single one of them, and like some of them pretty substantial. There's no price freezes. That all prices are going up everywhere. So I'd say that's the low. I'd say it's budgets and costs rising.
And I think that will only make it so much harder for the entrepreneurs in our industry to be launching. It's hard for everyone, but our industry does really, certainly the business event side, our industry relies on entrepreneurs to grow our baby shows, our baby events, so the big ones can come in and make those entrepreneurs millionaires. But that, they can't. We need those people. We need those people that are going to take a risk, and the closer that risk gets to the size of the equity they've got in their house, the less they're likely to take the risk. Right. Okay. So we've got launches, sustainability buy-in, increasing costs. I'm going to throw two in. I'm part of the apprenticeship kind of working group, and I am dismayed at our industry not taking up the advantage of apprenticeships. It's a no-brainer. Oh, the government will train your incoming people to be better at their jobs. But our industry almost seems reluctant, resistant to actual kind of tried and tested ways of bringing young people into our industry. And that to me is ridiculous. So I'm putting that on my lows. The other thing I'm going to put on my lows is we are still fragmented. We're really fragmented. I love the power of events, and I'm right behind them. But I wish everybody else would do as well. I get right behind them in terms of like our campaign that events are brilliant. So I still feel we've not come together. We're running out of time, so I'm going to pull us out of the doldrums of the lows of 2024. Let's talk about the big topics and the key issues that we're going to face in 2025. So, Paul, let's come to you first, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like we touched on it just now. You were talking about kind of entrepreneurs setting up their businesses and then hopefully making millions when they sell them. That's what's happening, kind of certainly in the event agency world. Kind of mergers and acquisitions is the big thing. It's been a number of big moves in mergers and acquisitions in 2024, and that is going to carry on into 2025. I'm reliably informed, and it's pretty straightforward. Budgets are a challenge, like I said, and the market's super competitive, and it's taking much more effort for agencies to win business these days than it used to be. So the time, effort, and resources it takes to win work is really kind of pulling on agencies. So companies, they're looking at the accounts, like the clients they've got, and looking at how they can expand them rather than winning new business. And so basically, if you're an event agency, other companies have got the team that you need, or the clients that you need, or the geographic reach that you need. And at the moment, it's just easier to buy the company that has the things that you need. That's basically what's behind all the mergers and acquisitions. And I think that's going to carry on as well. I think there's also a little bit of, like during the pandemic, kind of like there's quite a lot of people who, obviously there was a lot of agencies and businesses went to the wall during COVID, but there were a lot survived as well. But ones that did survive, they might have got to the other side of the crocodile-infested waters of COVID and thought, right, kind of, I'm out of here now. It's time to sell. And
Oh, sorry, the sound just cut out slightly for me there. Right. That I think that's going to be really interesting. Like you say, there's huge numbers of buying and selling of stuff going on. I think one thing we need to be mindful of in all those transitions is how those changes kind of affect the trickle down through the supply chains. Because how many times do we see contracts shift from one agency or one supplier so quickly just because there's a new ops person in lead and stuff. So ops people that are on the call, something I think we need to be aware of in 2025 is just ethical procurement and managing supply chain challenges. So Caroline, over to you for the trends and the big topics.
Trend, I think there'll be a very clear one. It's come up a couple of times in conversation this year. Scalable production. So promoters and organisers getting a measure of ticket sales before they decide on their site layout. So they need to hit a certain sales target, and that will determine their production and procurement budget. I was talking with Valleyfest this year and Slam Dunk. And Slam Dunk, Ben Ray, who's the promoter there, he was very open and honest about it, saying that they ploughed ahead with the design and procurement for a 30,000 capacity site, expecting sales to hit, and they just didn't. So I think what we'll see is organisers wanting to get a feel for where sales are, and then potentially also being a bit more transparent with customers. So I know Valleyfest are contemplating this, where they're going to go, if you want this at your festival that you love coming to, then we need to sell X number of tickets. But that's only going to happen if X, Y, and Z also happens. So it's again about building that honesty and trust into that conversation with the customer. So yeah, scalable production, and that I think will be a big thing. That will certainly help with rising costs that we've got. And then there are health and safety. It crops up whether you're working in the corporate world or exhibitions or live events outside. Martin's Law, it's coming. Don't know quite what yet, but hey, it's there, and it's certainly going to be in conversations. Emergency Planning College is reviewing SAG guidance, so it's more unified. So hopefully we might all be able to agree on what they're going to be bloody well called, which would be great. But then there's another bit, and again, depending what type of event you're organising, dealing with protesters. I still think that's going to be there next year. And I know there's a little bit of police nervousness at the minute about a new legal precedent that's been set in court, looking at changes at how the police are willing to deal with protesters at events. So there's a big challenge around the police's interpretation of the law, which will potentially impact how security teams deal with handling protests on your site. Right. I've seen a lot this year where Farnborough did it, for example. They put in a protest response team, and that is happening more and more. And that whether it's an animal rights organisation at a horse racing, or whether it's
anything.
Ministry of Defence, anything, it can happen anywhere. But people, depending on whether your site is private land or public land, and you can't be shown to be giving preferential treatment to one person or another. Yeah, protests will be still need to be dealt with. So that's those are the top tips to look out for on your side, right, Adam?
Okay, so I think a trend and something that I'm looking for, so I'm sure others are looking for, is around automation of processes. There's still a huge amount of manual processing that takes place around an event. We know it. We do it, and I think there's a huge focus on that for us as a business, and I'm sure the same as others, where if we can automate processes, not only does it speed things up, but it also reduces the margin for error as well, because there's not a human necessarily in the middle. Now, that's not to say we're replacing humans. That's just to say it should be like a hammer is a tool for a tradie and other things like that. It's a way of working that I think it becomes really, really valuable. And the trend that I think we will see is employers starting to look for visibility of that as soft skills when it comes to CVs and work experience. I don't want to have to tell you how to use ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity. I want you to be able to show me how you use it within your role, because I'm hiring you because you are a great person. I'm the owner of a business. I'm not the operations director. I'm not the CS. I'm not the marketing director. I'm employing you because I want you to know your sphere and be able to empower your role by using those pieces of technology. So I think, honestly, it's so accessible to gain knowledge and information. I mean, you can literally spend hours on TikTok scrolling through and just learn, pick things up, play around with the technology. Nothing's going to blow up for you. Most of it gives you free access, so it's not a barrier to entry from a cost perspective. And the more that you know, the stronger you become as an employee, as far as I can see. So I think we'll start to see a trend where companies will want to see visibility of that, and ultimately employ on some of those on that as a basis. Yeah.
So all in for my poems via ChatGPT then, that I keep pulling out in the pub. And Ilaria in the comments is I know is massively keen on digital transformation as well. And just a tip for so going into 2025. All of our kind of industry sessions, apart from this one at the end of next year, are going to be AI and tech based content, questions and bits as well. Because certainly in our kind of things that are coming down the tracks from our research, the knowledge gaps around technology, sustainability, and security. So those are ours. Paul, we've done the three of you, right? We're a minute over time, but I am going to come to our last quick question. You've got like 5 seconds each to tell me, right? What would each of you like to rub out and draw again? Caroline.
Well, I've just realised I've sat here the entire time with the word juicy written behind my head. So I apologise for that. Not something I want to rub out and start again for this year. Do you know what I want to get rid of? Zoom calls when a phone call will suffice.
Love it. Brilliant.
That'll be me.
Paul?
This might be controversial. AI for content. I have had a lot of people submitting articles to me that have clearly been written by AI, and they are terrible. I just don't understand why you do it. Basic level, like, it's lovely to write a thing. I'm a writer. I like writing things. Why on earth would you subcontract that out to a robot? I don't know. Don't do it, please.
Brilliant. Love that one. And Adam?
Carpet hustlers.
And when you first said this, I was like, what are you talking about?
Carpet hustler. I don't know where I picked it up from. I definitely didn't invent it, but carpet hustlers, the definition for me of the term is somebody who attends an event which is purely there to leverage the value for the event without supporting the event or the exhibitors or the speakers or the audience. Now, there's many reasons for lots of different people to attend an event, and our events are free to attend and will continue to be free to attend. But when you see a sales team of 10 people coming to an event and they're in key locations, taking time up of attendees that are supposed to be speaking to the companies that have paid to support your event, or even worse, those companies who have paid to be there to speak to people that are attending the event, that's really, it's got on my wick, shall we say, over the past few years, and I see it as a continuing trend. We implemented something this year which, if I'm honest, people lost their mind over, which was to restrict their times to the event, not charge them, not ask them for money, but restrict their times to the event. Again, we're not the first person to do that, but this is something that I see. It's just companies or individuals that just leverage the value of everything that everybody else has pulled together, and will quite happily leech off of it, shall we say.
Yeah, I think I'm going to team on that one and put unethical practices, just broadly, because actually I think our audiences coming towards our events in the next, over time, are going to be looking at us, and it goes back to that trust thing. you can't trust an unethical kind of situation, can you, or an unethical organizer. We've got duties and we've got responsibilities. Right, that is the end. We've gone over. I'm so sorry, but I just didn't want it to stop. Adam, Caroline, Paul, Catherine and Mike, and to the guys at Unity and to the team at the Ops Nest, thank you so much. It's time for Christmas. No, we've probably got another week or two's work, but thank you ever so much. I really finding out what the kind of across the board stuff is, and see what we can get cracking on for 2025. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.